Hi, this is Gabe. Welcome back to the shop. In this video, we're going to be making the Eddie Van Halen Eruption guitar pin. Now, this is going to be the second video I made. The first video was almost 40 minutes. Went through a lot of detailed instruction, but after watching everything step by step, I realized I was missing a few steps, and it was the detailed instruction on the first blank, which I didn't use. The lines weren't lining up correctly and everything, so I didn't want to pass out some bad information, so I'm starting over, and this will be the fourth blank that I'm working on. And anyway, I got it dialed in. I know what I'm doing. So with my blanks, it's usually a lot of trial and error, mostly error. So anyway, just want to start over and make the best product I can for you guys. So just want to say thanks for watching. Really appreciate your support. This is the Eddie Van Halen pen that we are going to replicate. Okay, so to make this blank, and then this is the orientation, this is the top where the clip is. It's kind of complicated because you have to do it in layers, so to speak. You have to put the 1/8 inch strip in first here, across, so you have to cut this in two, then add this over here, cut this in two, glue these two pieces together, make sure it's flat all the way across, glue this in, then glue that together, and then do the white lines and then do the black lines on top of that. So in order to do that, we have a lot of different things going on, a lot of different steps. Tools you're going to need, or at least the way I did it, to keep my lines straight. I didn't just cut all these in half, every white line, just cut the blank in half. Otherwise, when you glue it back together, everything's going to get crooked as you go. And I'll show you what I mean with the first blank right here. Looking close, you can see that the white lines do not line up. Okay, after looking at that, you can see up close how crooked some of those lines are. So, in order to accomplish that, the first pen that I made, I didn't go down deep enough, so there's a way around that. Now, it looks like I cut all the way through, but in reality, I didn't, and we'll explain that as we go. So the tools you're going to need, you're going to need a miter box. Incidentally, every one of these cuts is hand cut, no power tools. And that's the only way that I could do it without losing the integrity of the blank and losing a lot of wood, being able to keep those thin lines. And I can control the thickness of the lines from 1/8 inch. This is 3 pieces of veneer, and then the white is 1 piece of veneer. So anyway, we'll explain that in just a second. So you're going to need this, something like this, a miter box, a hold down. You need a method of clamping that into place while you make all these weird little angles. I'm using a pull saw. You can use a back saw if you have that, as long as it's a thin cut, no thicker than the slice of veneer. So if you don't have one of these, you can run over to Harbor Freight and get them. They're not expensive. And I've had this one for quite a long time, probably at least 15, 16 years. It's got a few missing teeth, but it still works great. Next thing you're going to need, this is what I used for all the white veneers, and then when I cut this in half. Then you need a hacksaw, and the hacksaw is for the black veneers. And the reason for the hacksaw is, and this is also my own idea, now you'll notice the thickness right here. That is 2 blades together. So 2 blades doubled up in a hacksaw will get you a thickness that's close to half as thick as the white, the 1/8 inch. So this is like a half of an eighth, which is like a 16th, and then this is like a 64th for the single line. So if you take a look at the original guitar that I'm using, that the lines in the picture are several different sizes. It's not just one size line fits all, and all those lines line up from point A to point B. So it's not just a bunch of random series of cuts. Everything's actually pretty planned out and lined up correctly. So I'm trying to emulate that here on this blank. Now, doing this one blank, this is probably a couple hours worth of work of just hand cutting. So, and all CA glue and some accelerator. But anyway, with that explanation, hopefully it's not too misleading. The woods I'm going to use obviously is going to be bloodwood. And I'm going to use this, this is 1/8 inch maple, and then we're going to use some white and black veneers. Okay, first things first, I got about 2.5 inches of 1/8 inch maple here. This is the blank I'm going to use. This is for the upper of the cigar, about 1 7/8 inch long. So like I said, we're going to make one cut here all the way across. And that's going to be on a diagonal. Now you'll notice that's not going to reach. So I have to glue a support piece on the back here in order to clamp that in place. This is a piece of scrap that I used for several different things, and we're just going to go ahead and cut that in half right there real quick. Okay, that's our first through cut. Now we need to make a second through cut right here. So the only way to do that literally is to just flip it over, and then I'm just going to have to mark that real quick on the back side so I can see where my line is. So it's roughly the same on the back side. That's just freehand with a pencil. It doesn't have to be exact. It can be any random lines that you like. And then this is the good thing about this, is you can adjust this to fit. I got a gap right there, so I need to cut this off and re-glue it real quick. Okay, you know, I just opted to cut that in the bandsaw and then sand that nice and flush. Now, you'll see that if you line up the ends, the end right there where it's nice and flush, you see just that cut from the bandsaw blade gets you out of alignment right there. So, but that's okay, because when we glue this piece in right there like that, and then we add this, we're actually back in alignment. Now we're actually wider on the outside. I'll show you what that's like in just a minute. I'm going to glue it and I'll come right back. Okay, just got back from the disc sander, and you can see that that is glued, and then that's got to be flush. Now this is pushed out. This is slightly out of alignment on the outside, but that is fine. So next step, we glue this piece here like that, and then we glue the outside on afterwards. So we'll come back when this is glued up. Okay, now that we got that area glued up, and of course everyone knows about that happening, so that's why I wear gloves. So I'm gonna sand this off first and then come back and glue it. Okay, I got that sanded real quick, and as you can see, now that when I do my alignment, it will make it a lot easier so I can see what's what, and I won't be off at all. Okay, now if that's glued up, we can start the next part of this process, and I have to cut this off first, and then we'll come right back and show you what I'm doing. So when I started with this blank, it was this long. Now it's this long. That is because we added the length here in width from both of these pieces, so that pushed it out. Pushed it down rather. So next thing to do is we just need to work from here. I need to square this up, and then after that's square, then I can sort of trim that off, or I can leave it as is, and I'll just work from here down where I'm going to put my lines. But before I do that, before I cut any lines, I want to make sure my blank is square, so I need to sand off the bottom because I need to glue a shoe on the bottom. Okay, we're back. So when I said shoe, this is exactly what we're talking about. We put a shoe on the bottom of this, like a horseshoe, so to speak. This is our blank, this is the top. If we look at our example blank, like that, right, that is the top. You can see how it's similar. I'm not going for exact, and I want everyone to be just a little bit different. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make all of our cuts, they're going to be through cuts all the way till I hit the shoe. So I can cut all the way through, unlike a Celtic, or similar to a Celtic knot. But I'm going to cut all the way through the blank, and then that is going to expose that all the way through so that I know my lines are good all the way through from top to bottom of the pen blank. So I'm going to go ahead and draw up my initial lines first, which are going to be the white lines, which are going to be these diagonal ones, and then the cross hatching lines also. So anyway, we'll get that started next. Come right back as soon as I have some lines to work with. Okay, I've just got some basic lines here, some diagonals and whatnot. I don't want it to get too busy because I want to be able to just get the essence of the build, as you can see in the photo. Ooh. Ah. Okay, now you can see that there are various sizes of lines. The white is obviously, this is the predominant one, and then actually in the actual photo there's 3 different sizes of white lines, but I'm just going to go with 2 for simplicity's sake, because I don't want it too busy. I still want to be able to see the redwood and enjoy it. And then after we get these lines cut, for this action we're going to use the pull saw, and like I said, we're going to go all the way down into the maple strip on the bottom, the shoe, but we're not going to cut all the way through it. And this is the beauty of this piece right here. Oh, I need to readjust the height of this because this is taller. You can adjust your clamp pressure and the height of this going up and down to account the thickness for the shoe and so forth. So that makes it a lot easier. Plus the gap here, you can position that blank within there and it holds it down pretty good. The grooves on the bottom make it easier to move the sawdust around so you can still get a firm grip on the bottom. This was like 20 bucks at Lowe's. I used this in my part 3 video many years ago, several years ago, segmenting with basic tools and jigs. So I think I paid 20 bucks for it then. Probably the same price. I can't imagine it being much more than that. And again, you can use the back saw for this as well. I'm just using this because I prefer the pull saw. There, you can see that I am into the wood, which is good, and I'm not exactly looking to follow the lines perfectly, but you know, it does help. But I'm really happy with that. So now if you'll notice on this jig from my last cut, which is diagonal the other direction, right here, I didn't actually sand it. I just broke the tips off for right now. I'll sand it all at once. This is roughly a 45, so I'm just going to do a 45. But in order to clamp this down, I have to move this, the clamp, from this side of the jig to this side so that I can actually cut from the opposite direction. So that's one thing to consider if you don't have one of these and you do have one, or you are going to buy one. I don't know if they make one that swivels or another way to make it, but I'm just using what I have without having to buy anything different. It's just a minute to unscrew it, move it over back and forth as I need it. So that's what I did. So this is the last cut for the white veneer. And it's right there. So I thought I saw a little bit of white sawdust coming out the bottom, so I was hitting that maple, which I was. So we'll just glue that in, and I'll sand it and come right back. Okay, so we have a good start so far, and that's about as much as my back can tolerate since my surgery and all. So I'm going to stop right there, and then we'll come back another day and go from there for our black lines. Okay, it's another day, and where we left off, I said we were going to work on the black lines. So just in pencil lead, I drew out some black lines right there, and I'm going to do these first two cross ones, and those are roughly a 45-degree angle, and then this long one here. So we'll go ahead and get this one started. Since this jig is already moved over, doing these, we have to move this jig back and forth, and then the same thing with the black. So I think that's set up for it okay right there for the black line, but we'll play it by ear and see how that works out. So even though we're gonna use the hacksaw for the three pieces of veneer right here, this is a little bit harder to cut with the two blades at one time. So I found it easier when I was making my practice blank to cut first a single line, single thickness across in here first, and then follow it through with the hacksaw with a double blade. It helps make that cut a little bit quicker, otherwise it takes a very long time and it's much more labor intensive. Okay, that's the first line. Then we go to the hacksaw with the double blade. Make sure you pinch that blade in there. And you can see what that looks like all the way through. Didn't take too long. So when it comes to loading these in here, this is 3 pieces, as you could see. And this is a really tight fit. So I try and put a little pressure on the back to open it up, look like a spring, if I have to. In most cases I don't, because it's very, very tight. But there we go, it's working out pretty good. Then I'll bend it down a little bit and get that to seat all the way. And that looks pretty good. Inspect it both sides to be sure that it's coming through on the bottom. And then after that's in there, then I'll just flood that with some thin CA, like the way I normally glue up all my blanks. I don't try and glue it and then stick it in, glue it and stick it in. I'll put the veneer in first, and then I'll drop the thin CA on top of it. And then that will flood the blank and get really good adhesion. So in case you're wondering, these are the type of hacksaw blades that I bought. I got these from Harbor Freight, like I said earlier. Nothing major, only ones that they had, but I was looking for the ones, they're bimetal, that have that ridge on them, you know, that sort of a ripple effect, not a straight one. So anyway, and make sure you use 2 identical ones should you decide to make one using this method. All right, now we're coming to the last and final part. I had to cut off the end over here and move it to this side so we can navigate this line inside the jig. With this moved over from this side to this side now, and that's the only way it can be clamped in place in order to cut that diagonally and to lock that down in place so that I can make that cut. Like I said, this is a lot of work to go into something that looks very simple if you want to keep all the lines in line. If you don't care about the lines and just putting them in any old way and whether they line up or not, then you don't have to go through all this. But if you want to try and keep all the lines, at least this is the only way that I know to do it with the tools that I have. You may have a better setup and can do this a lot easier, but with basic tools, this is what I got, and then this is how I'm doing it. Again, I'm just going to start diagonally using the pull saw, make that cut, and then follow it through with the hacksaw, and then I'll glue the veneers in, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so I got that trimmed up, that little side piece cut off. Next thing there is to do is just to cut the shoe off the bottom, and then I will clean it up at the disc sander so you can see what that looks like. Okay, that is cleaned up, and you can see what that looks like all the way around. That's the bottom, so that's why we put the shoe on there. So you see all those lines line up perfectly front to back. So it's worth taking the extra step to make sure all those lines line up, if that's the look that you like. If you don't mind it, you knock yourself out, do it the other way. You'll save a lot of time and a lot of headache. But for me, my OCD wouldn't allow me to do that. So anyway, this is the top part of that pen, so we just need to go ahead and drill that out using a 25/64 drill bit, and then make sure this is cut to length. Okay, now that we're finished with the upper part, now it's time to get to the lower part. This is where we're going to make the frets for the body, or for the lower part of the body. This is for the cigar pen, so we're looking at about 2 1/8 inches overall length, and we're going to divide this into 6 pieces. Breaking it down is about 9 millimeters each. So, but to divide those and to make it look good, like you see in the image, we're going to be using aluminum. This is 010 thick aluminum. I know a lot of people use a Coke can or something like that. This is a little bit thicker, shows up a little bit better. And to do that, the holes we need to drill, if you haven't seen my Honduras rosewood guitar pin video, then this is the exact same way I did all those frets. I'm just using the 25/64 inch brad point drill bit. You see these are all marked, and then after I drill these out, and then I'll just cut them with some tin snips, and we're good to go. I'm just going to show you how I do a couple of them real quick. This is like I said, they're not even dimpled or anything on the back side or relieved. This is so super simple using a brad point. That's why I got the X, so I know where I'm at in the middle. The point actually is there to stabilize it, pinch that aluminum, and then the outside of the brad point actually cuts it really quick. Watch. Done. Doesn't even have to go all the way through. Do that again one more time. And not a fancy jig, just a couple of screws to hold it in place to keep it from twisting, safety wise. Okay, that's a little better. Just had to open that gap up a little bit. I just want that to be able to slide in and out. Screws just keep it from twisting too much when that grabs. Just line up the X. Done. Just like that. Pretty simple. Then I'll just repeat the process all the way through, because I'm going to be making several of these. Okay, we're back, and we're going to be doing the lower part. And we need to drill some holes. I need to drill a hole here, here, one here, and one here. Now, the first pin I made, I was off on this right here, and secondly, the blank was too wide. I used a 1/8 inch, or excuse me, a 1 inch wide blank, and a 3/4 inch blank width works better because it's not as wide, so it pulls those dots in closer. So it makes it a lot easier when you look at the front of it like this. The dots will actually be closer together rather than further apart. So you'll have to take my word for it on that. So anyway, what we need to do now is, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill these, and I have these relieved, obviously, chamfered on the ends, and that's so that I can put this in the V block, line that up, drill that out, and I want to be able to look at it from both sides. And I'm not quite right there, but that's why I like using the brad point bit, so I can make sure I got my line on there and I can check it from both sides. That side looks good, and this side looks good right here like that. So what I'm doing here is I'm pulling the lever down with the back fingers here while I'm holding the blank in place right here, and then with my thumb I'm turning it off and on so I can get all three actions at one time, stabilizing the blank. I can put this exactly where I want it to be sure I'm there, and it looks good. I can turn it off, turn it back on, drill all the way through, and I'm good. And as a result, you can see what that looks like. So we'll just do the other side. Underneath the drill press, I've just got a little pie plate to catch all the sawdust. Makes it nice and easy. And then you can feel it as it exits that middle. That's why you want to drill that out first. Otherwise, you'll go right through the whole thing and you won't know when to stop. So that's it for this. We'll just flip it over and use it for support right there. Okay, so now we're going to make the ebony dowels here, the 3/16 inch dowels. This is a piece of ebony, a little more than 3/16 of an inch thick. I rounded this end off in the lathe and tapered this end off over here. This fits inside this piece of metal. This is a 3/16 inch hole with another 3/16 inch hole next to it. Sort of works like a pencil sharpener. This goes into the Jacob's chuck. I wanted it round on the back side so it'll grab with the three teeth there. And that's okay to wobble around a little bit till it stabilizes itself. There. See what that looks like. We'll just flip it around and then start over. There, you can see we got a nice little dowel, and this will fit inside those holes. Now I just want to fix that right there, but other than that, that's how we make the ebony dowels for those. We just glue them in real quick, little CA, hit it with the accelerator, and then we'll come right back. Okay, that's not looking very pretty, but it's in there. And then that has to be re-drilled out again, which is just part of the process. So that's why I got to put everything in first, re-drill it, and then after that happens, then I can cut this, and then we'll go from there. So we'll come back as soon as I have this drilled, and then get ready to cut. Okay, now that that is glued up and ready to go, I had to glue on this support block on the back so we can clamp it down and cut it while we cut from here forward. Now I need to cut this at this line here, 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 and then to right there where that X is. And then this is going to be the end. So this will be the whole part that we're going to use right here. And again, we're going to be using the pull saw. You could do this with a miter saw or a table saw, but if you did that, you'd have to start with a really long blank because every saw cut's going to be 1/8 of an inch, and you'd lose the grain step by step. So it's better to do it with a pull saw or a back saw or whatever you have. That's going to give you a nice thin cut. Okay. Line it up a little bit better. Okay, and you can see that's relatively thin, and then we'll just work our way down the lane real quick off camera. So as you can see, this is our blank from the side, so we know that all these pieces are in the correct orientation. So now what we need to do is just put it on this over here, and these are those pieces that we cut earlier, and of course they're sanded on both sides. And then we're just going to load this on here in the correct orientation. See, we're right at the end of that, and just about the end. I just use another tube to push it in just a little bit. You know what? That's not going to work. Just walk it forward. My fingers. So as soon as we get that in line, like that, or line it up from the top would be better. Okay, now we're almost there. Now there's a little bit of an issue where you see some of the aluminum pieces. They're not perfectly flat, so I need to disassemble that, knock those flat, and then come right back. Okay, now that's somewhat lined up. I'm just going to put it inside my quick grip and then get a readjustment going on it. There, you can see from the bottom or the side, that's lined up correctly, and on top that looks good. So I'm just going to flood the blank with some thin CA. It's not squeezed very tight, just enough to hold it in place. And that's also going to hit the tube also. Now I'm going to put some pressure on it. So that looks pretty good. Then I'll take this to the disc sander, clean that up real quick, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so that is the lower part. Cleaned it all up. It's hard to see the grain completely, but it lines up pretty good. It'll look a lot better once we get it all together with one of the blanks. So we take one of these and one of these, and you know, we got ourselves a nice looking pen. Okay, we finally made it to the point in the video where we're actually going to turn this thing. I relieved the edges here. I didn't relieve them here, but I think I'm okay. So anyway, we're just going to go ahead and turn this up to speed and turn it down to shape. Again, this is the upper, the lower, and I'm going to stabilize it halfway through. How deep that goes. So that's not very good. Let me take it apart and restabilize it. So after stabilizing that up a little bit and turning it back down, you can see that hole is dramatically smaller. So I think when I turn it down the rest of the way, that should dissolve into the rest of that and look pretty good, just based on what I'm seeing and what it looks like. So, so far everything is looking pretty good. So one of the issues we have with maple, when you sand it with the aluminum and the ebony, those colors will drift into the actual maple itself. So we need to seal it first with thin CA before we start sanding it. That way it'll fill those pores and nothing will the colors won't drift over. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, I just put 2 coats of thin CA and accelerator on that, and then I can go ahead and sand it and then polish it. Okay, so I sanded that through the grits with 180 to 400, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put some hot wax on it so you see what it looks like. Okay, there we go. So we had to do some of that off camera. That just took a little too long, but you get the basic idea of what we're doing. We'll just go ahead and assemble that real quick. Okay, here we are at the drill press, and again, that is the bottom, like that right there. You can see we're just going to go ahead and pop that in there. There, that worked out pretty good. Okay, this is the lower. that goes in here. That's for the transmission. And let's push that in there. There is our Eddie Van Halen Eruption pen. That looks pretty good. It looks a lot like our model. These are still a little further apart than I would like. Probably go with a little bit thinner blank, but you get the idea. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Hey, this is Gabriel Castro. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. You can click on the link right here and subscribe. You can watch a video series right here or the latest video right here.